Once I started editing this video, I noticed that I keep referring to this transmission as the Volvo M46 transmission, but that's incorrect. This is not the Volvo M46 transmission. It is still a Volvo transmission, but it is the M47 transmission. That is still an M90. So just had to drop that info here right at the start. This is a Volvo M46 transmission. And it's a pretty weak transmission. If you have a fast Volvo 240, that is going to break. That one is a Volvo M90 transmission, and it's a whole lot stronger than that one. If you want to put the M90 in place of the M46, the engine side is easy. The bell housing pattern is exactly the same between these two transmissions. So they both bolt to the redblock engine as is. No modifications needed. The problem is the backside of the transmission. This is the bracket on the M46, which holds the transmission mount, and then that is bolted to the transmission cross member, and that's how the rear of this transmission sits in the car. How do you do it with the M90 then? Well, you'd need some sort of a bracket here which would place this mount in the same spot in space. So let's make one. Making one starts out by taking a metric bucket load of measurements of both transmissions and the transmission mount and the car, and then designing the part in CAD. After some iterations, the final CAD drawings are sent out to be laser cut out of steel. And these are the parts of the kit. This is the base plate, which actually fits in the M90 transmission. These are the side plates. They are welded to the base plate. This is the, middle plate. This is the top plate. The transmission mount actually fits into this one, and then this is the lip. Even though these parts have these slots and then these other parts have these tabs and they are kind of self-aligning, this is still very much a do-it-yourself kit, and you're probably going to have to do some adjustment and small things like that. And these parts are designed to be used with the stock Volvo M47 transmission mount. Either one or two of these. I'll get back to that, two of these later in this video. If you look at these parts in detail, you can see that they have these sort of burrs or ridges, and this is how they come from the laser cutters. So the first thing that you want to do with all of these parts is to put them in a vise, file all of those away. Then it's time for welding. The first thing that we're going to weld are these side pieces, and they are going to be welded on the base plate like this. First I'm going to tack weld the tabs from the backside. They are now tack welded, and before I weld the top tabs, I'm going to rotate this around and I'm going to put this middle plate in its place. And here it is in its current orientation. This plate has these tabs which located to the side plates, and then the feet go through the base plate and you can actually see them from the backside. And there it is, tack welded in its place. What you want to do at this point is you want to weld all of these inside corners here inside the bracket, because once you put the top plate on, it's going to be difficult to get in there and weld all those joints. While the bracket is cooling off, we're going to focus on the top plate. And the next thing you want to do is weld this short bar to the top plate. I'm going to explain the purpose of this short bar a bit later, but this is how you position it on the top plate. And what you actually don't want to do is you don't want to weld it from this side. So no weld here. Only weld it from the back side. As was mentioned at the very beginning, this is very much a do-it-yourself project, and there's going to be things that you kind of have to figure out on the way when you assemble one of these. One of the problems that I encountered here is that even though I had this top plate in its position when I tack welded these pieces, once I fully welded them, things kind of moved around a little bit, and this no longer fit in its correct position. So what I ended up doing is I filed these tabs a bit. You can see here that they are kind of sloped, and that's enough to make enough clearance so that you can actually fit the part. So just a quick heads up there that you're most likely going to be encountering small issues like this when you're assembling one of these. So this needs do-it-yourself skills.
Alright, and after that, a little bit of filing, the top plate fits nicely where it's supposed to go. The important thing here is that it sits flush towards the side plate, and the lip goes downwards. And then I promised to explain the lip, and the purpose of the lip on this new bracket is to replicate that lip on the stock M46 bracket. The transmission mount kind of rests against that lip. And it does the same thing here on the new part. Whether or not that's actually necessary, I don't know, but the stock one had it, so the new part has it as well. And that's how it looks when it's tack welded together. This is the final shape. Now you can't naturally leave it like this, only tack welded. You'll actually have to go through all the seams all around the part and fully weld it to make it structurally strong enough. Now this is just regular mild steel, so once it's fully welded and grinded and made to look all pretty, it needs to be painted as well to protect it from the elements. But the part goes here. And now that part is in the same location in space as that one. So basically you can bolt that out, bolt this part to this transmission, and then bolt that to that place. The reason why this part has 3 holes is that you can actually double up on the transmission mounts and use 2 of them side by side. And that way you'll get a more rigid mounting at the rear of the transmission, and especially in a Volvo 240, this can be a good thing. Now if you do decide to use 2 of these mounts, then you naturally have to modify the crossmember as well, and that's just a matter of drilling 2 holes to the transmission crossmember. Of course, there's still a host of other things that you have to figure out, like the drive shaft and the shifter linkage to that transmission and the clutch, but those are stories for another day.